How Maya was surprised and surprised us all. I woke up feeling so exhausted the next morning. Mom let me go to school late. I saw that both Jimena and Summer had texted me first thing in the morning. Jimena Chin, I feel the same way, Charlotte. What a night. Summer Dawson, I love you too. I didn't text them back because I knew they were in class. I missed the first 3 periods and didn't see either of them until lunch. Summer, as usual, was sitting with Auggie and Jack, and Jimena, as usual, was at the Savannah table. For a fraction of a second, I was going to go over and say hello to Jimena, but the image of Maya standing in front of that same group of kids yesterday was still fresh in my head, and I didn't want to give Jimena even the sliver of a chance of disappointing me with anything but a really friendly hello. So I waved to her and Summer as I walked over to my usual table and sat down next to Maya. The girls at my table asked me how last night had gone. Some of them had heard about it from their parents, but I spared them too many details because I knew they'd lose interest after 30 seconds, which is exactly what happened. Not that I could blame them, really. The main thing on their minds, in fact, the only thing they wanted to talk about, was the note that Maya had given to Ellie yesterday in Carvel. That note, it turned out, which by now had been quoted or read aloud by half the grade, was Maya's first ticket to a kind of popularity she had never experienced before. People were talking about her. Kids were pointing her out to curious sixth graders who had also heard about the note. I'm the queen of the underdogs today, Maya herself said. I could tell she felt triumphant. She liked the attention she was getting. I had intended to tell her how hurt Jimena had been by her note, how it had made her cry, but in a strange way I also didn't want to rain on Maya's parade. Hey, you, said Summer, nudging me so I could scoot over. Hey, I said, surprised to see her there. I looked over at her table, but Auggie and Jack had already left. Hi, Summer, said Maya eagerly. Did you hear about my note? Summer smiled. Yes, I did, she answered. Did you like it? Maya asked. I could tell Summer didn't want to hurt Maya's feelings either, so she hesitated in answering. Where are Auggie and Jack? I interjected. Working on some top secret notes to leave in Julian's locker, she answered. A note like mine, said Maya. Summer shook her head. I don't think so. Love notes from someone named Beulah. Who's Beulah? I said. Summer laughed. It's too hard to explain. I noticed that Jimena was looking at us from all the way across the cafeteria. I smiled at her. She smiled back. Then, to my surprise, she got up and walked over to our table. Everybody at the table stopped talking as soon as they saw her standing there. Without even being asked, Megan and Rand scooted apart, and Jimena sat down between them, directly opposite Maya, me, and Summer. Maya was completely shocked. Her eyes were open wide, and she almost looked a little scared. I had no idea what would happen next. Jimena clasped her hands in front of her, leaned forward, and looked straight at Maya. Maya, she said, I just want to apologize if I've ever said or done anything to insult you. I never meant to, if that's the case. I actually think you're a really nice person and super smart and interesting, and I really hope that we can be friends from now on. Maya blinked, but she didn't say anything. Her mouth was literally hanging open. Anyway, said Jimena, now seeming a little shy, I just wanted to tell you that. That's so nice of you, Jimena, said Summer, smiling. Jimena looked at us with that winking expression of hers. It's the shingling, baby, she said, which made us both smile. Then, as quickly as she'd sat down with us, she got up and walked back to her table. I looked out of the corner of my eye and saw Ellie and Savannah watching her. As soon as she sat down at her table, they came in close to hear what she had to say. That was so nice of her, wasn't it? Summer said to Maya. I'm shocked, answered Maya, taking her glasses off to wipe them. Totally shocked. Summer gave me a little knowing look. Maya, whatever happened to that giant game of dots you were working on? I said. Oh, I have it here, she answered eagerly. I told you I was waiting until you were around to play it. Why, you want to play now? Yeah, I answered. I do. Me too, said Summer. Maya gasped, grabbed her backpack, and pulled out a tube of paper that was folded in thirds and bent slightly at the top. We watched her unfold it and carefully unwind the sheet of paper, which took up the entire width and length of the lunch table. When it was completely stretched out, we all looked at it, stunned. There wasn't 1 square inch of the gigantic paper that wasn't covered in dots, perfectly drawn, evenly spaced lines of dots, but not just dots. Beautiful grid patterns connected by swirls, waves of lines that ended in spirals or flowers or sunbursts. It almost looked like tattoo art, the way blue ink can cover someone's arm so completely you don't know where one tattoo starts and another ends. It was the most unbelievably beautiful game of dots I've ever seen. Maya, this is incredible, I said slowly. Yeah, she said happily. I know. How some things changed and some things didn't. That was the only time, and the last time, that Summer, Jimena, and I sat at a lunch table together, or at any table for that matter. We went back to our different groups, Jimena with Savannah, Summer and Auggie, me and Maya, and that honestly was fine with me. Sure, maybe there were parts of me, the part that loves happy endings, that wished things had changed. Jimena and Ellie would suddenly switch tables and start sitting at my table along with Summer. Maybe we'd start a new lunch table together with Jack and Auggie and Reed and Amos at the table next to ours. But the truth is, I knew things wouldn't change much. I knew it would be the way it had been after the sleepover. Like we had taken a secret trip together, a voyage that no one else knew about, and when we returned from our journey, we each went back to our own homes. Some friendships are like that. Maybe even the best friendships are like that. The connections are always there, they're just invisible to the eye. Which is why Savannah would have no idea that Summer and I got to know her friend Jimena as well as we did, and why Maya wouldn't understand the effect her note had on me and Summer, or why Auggie didn't know the first thing about any of this stuff that was going on. He has his own stuff to worry about, Summer had told me once when she explained why she had never told Auggie she'd gotten picked to be in Mrs. Watanabe's dance. He doesn't need to know about all this girl drama. That's not to say that there haven't been some changes that have happened. As we entered our last few months of fifth grade, I definitely noticed that Jimena made more of an effort to branch out to other girls in our grade, and when she sees me in the hallway now, she always gives me a warm hello, regardless of whether she's with Savannah. Also, even though Ellie and Maya never patched things up, Ellie and I have hung out after school a couple of times. Not that it's like it used to be, of course, but it's something, and I'll take it. Small steps, as Mrs. Watanabe would say. It starts with small steps. And the truth is, even if Jimena, Savannah, and Ellie did suddenly invite me to sit at their table, I wouldn't go now. It just wouldn't seem right. First of all, I wouldn't want to get an angry note from Maya or have her bare her teeth at me across a room. But mostly, it's because I realized something the day she unrolled her magnificent dot game across the lunch table. Maya's been my friend through thick and thin, my friend. All these years, in her clumsy, loyal, slightly annoying way, she's never judged me. She's always accepted me. And that group of girls at my lunch table, the ones I have nothing in common with, well, guess what? We have a lunch table in common. And a ridiculously beautiful game of dots that we play over lunch with the different colored markers Maya's assigned to each of us, each and every one of us, which we have to use or she gets really mad at us. But that's just Maya, and that will never change. How I talked to Mr. Tushman. The last day of school, Mr. Tushman's assistant, Mrs. Garcia, found me in 7th period and asked if I would come talk to Mr. Tushman right after school. Maya overheard her and started giggling. Ooh, Charlotte's in trouble, she sang. We both knew that wasn't the case, though, and that it probably had to do with the awards they were giving out tomorrow. Everyone assumed that I would win the Beecher Medal because I had organized the coat drive, and the medal usually went to the student who did the most community service. I knocked on Mr. Tushman's door right after the last period bell. Come in, Charlotte, he said enthusiastically, signaling for me to sit at the chair in front of his desk. I always loved Mr. Tushman's office. He had all these fun puzzles on the edge of his desk and artwork from kids over the years framed and hanging on the walls. I noticed immediately that he had Auggie's self-portrait as a duck displayed behind his desk. And then suddenly, I knew what this meeting was about. So are you excited about tomorrow's graduation ceremony, he asked, crossing his hands in front of him on the desk. I nodded. I can't believe 5th grade is almost over, I answered, unable to restrain my happiness. It's hard to believe, isn't it? He said. Do you have plans for summer? I'm going to dance camp. Oh, how fun, he answered. You three were so amazing at the benefit in March, like professional dancers. Mrs. Watanabe was so impressed with how hard you worked and how well you worked together. Yeah, it was so much fun, I said excitedly. That's great, he said, smiling. I'm glad you've had a good year, Charlotte. You deserve it. You've been a joyful presence in these hallways, and I appreciate how you've always been nice to everyone. Don't think things like that go unnoticed. Thank you, Mr. Tushman. The reason I wanted to have a little word with you before tomorrow, he said, and I'm hoping you can keep it between us, is that I know you know that among the many honors I give out tomorrow, one of them is the Beecher Medal. You're giving it to Auggie, I blurted out, right? He looked surprised. Why do you say that? He asked. Everybody's assuming I'm getting it. He looked at me carefully. Then he smiled. You're a very smart girl, Charlotte, he said gently. I'm fine with that, Mr. Tushman, I said. But I wanted to explain, he insisted, because the truth of the matter is, had this been like any other ordinary year, You would probably be getting that medal, Charlotte. You deserve it, not only because of all the hard work you did on the coat drive, but because, like I just said before, you've been a really nice person to everyone. I still remember how right from the start, when I asked you to be Auggie's welcome buddy, you embraced that wholeheartedly and without equivocation. Have I mentioned how much I love the fact that he uses big words and assumes we understand them? But as you know, he said, this year has been anything except ordinary. And when I was thinking about this award, thinking about what it represents, I realized that it can be about more than community service, not to devalue that at all. No, I know totally what you mean, I agreed. When I look at Auggie and all the challenges he has to face on a daily basis, he said, patting his heart, I'm in awe of how he manages to simply show up every day with a smile on his face. And I want him to have validation that this year was a triumph for him, that he's made an impact. I mean, the way the kids rallied around him after the horrible incident at the nature reserve, it was because of him. He inspired that kindness in them. I completely get what you mean, I said. And I want this award to be about kindness, he continued. The kindness we put out in the world. Totally, I agreed. He seemed genuinely delighted by my attitude and a little relieved, I think. I'm so glad you understand, Charlotte, he said. I wanted to tell you beforehand so you wouldn't be disappointed during the ceremony tomorrow, since, as you say, everyone's assuming you're getting it. But you won't tell anyone, right? I wouldn't want to ruin the surprise for Auggie or his family. Can I tell my parents? Of course, though I'm planning on giving them a call myself tonight to tell them just how proud I am of you at this very moment. He got up and reached across the table to shake my hand, so I shook his hand. Thank you, Charlotte, he said. Thank you, Mr. Tushman. See you tomorrow. Bye. I started walking toward the door, but then this one thought popped into my head like a fully formed idea. I had no clue where it came from. But the award can go to 2 people, right? I asked. He looked up. For a second, I thought I saw the tiniest bit of disappointment in his eyes. It has, on a few occasions, gone to a couple of students who've done a community service project together, he answered, scratching his forehead. But in the case of Auggie and you, I think the reasons he would be getting it are so different from the reasons you would be. No, I'm not talking about Auggie and me, I interrupted. I think Summer should get that award. Summer? She's been an amazing friend to Auggie all year long, I explained, and not just because you asked her to be his welcome buddy like with me and Jack. She just did it. It's like what you just said about kindness. Mr. Tushman nodded like he was really listening to what I was saying. I mean, I've been nice to Auggie, I said, but Summer was kind. That's like nice to the 10th power or something. Do you know what I mean? I know exactly what you mean, he answered, smiling. I nodded. Good. I really appreciate you telling me all this, Charlotte, he said. You've given me much to think about. Awesome. He was looking at me and nodding slowly like he was debating something in his head. Let me ask you something, though, he said, pausing as if he were trying to find the right words. Do you think Summer would want a medal just for being friends with Auggie? The moment he said it, I knew exactly what he meant. Oh, I said, wait a minute, you're right, she wouldn't. For some reason, the image of Maya baring her teeth at the Savannah table across the room popped into my head. Friends definitely aren't about the medals. But let me think about it tonight, he said, getting up. No, you're right, I answered. It's good the way you had it. You sure? I nodded. Thanks again, Mr. Tushman. See you tomorrow. See you tomorrow, Charlotte. We shook hands again, but this time he took my hand in both of his own. Just so you know, he said, being nice is the first step toward being kind. It's a pretty awesome start. I'm supremely proud of you, Charlotte. Maybe he knew it and maybe he didn't, but for someone like me, words like that are worth all of the medals in the world. How Jimena rocked her speech. Good morning, Dr. Jansen, Mr. Tushman, Dean Rubin, fellow students, faculty, teachers, and parents. I'm honored to have been asked to give the commencement speech on behalf of the 5th grade this year. As I look around at all the happy faces, I feel so lucky to be here. As some of you know, this was my first year at Beecher Prep. I won't lie. I was a little nervous about coming here at first. I knew that some kids have been here since kindergarten, and I was afraid I wouldn't make friends, but it turns out that a lot of my classmates were also new to the school like me. And even the kids who have been here a while, well, middle school is a brand new ballgame for everyone. It's definitely been a learning experience for all of us, with some bumps along the way, some hits and misses, but it's been a wonderful ride. Earlier this year, I was asked to perform in a dance choreographed by Mrs. Watanabe for the Beecher Prep benefit. It was amazing for me. My fellow dancers and I worked really hard to learn how to dance together as one. That takes a lot of time and trust. Now, you may not know this about me, but as someone who's gone to a lot of different schools over the years, trust hasn't always been easy for me to give people. But I really learned to trust these girls. I realized I could be myself with them, and I'll always be grateful for that. I think what I'm most looking forward to next year, my fellow fifth graders, is building that trust with all of you. My hope as we start sixth grade, as we get older and wiser, that we all learn to trust each other enough so that we can truly be ourselves and accept each other for who we really are. Thank you. How I finally introduced myself. I had texted Summer and Jimena the day I saw Gordy Johnson getting on an uptown bus, and we were all thrilled to know he was alive and well. There was so much else going on at that time, though, that we really hadn't had a chance to talk about it too much. We got excited, kept our eyes peeled to see if we'd spot him again somewhere else in the neighborhood, but we never did. He was gone, again. The next time I saw him wasn't until the beginning of July. Suddenly there he was again, sitting in front of the A&P supermarket awning, playing the same songs on his accordion that he had always played, his black Labrador lying down in front of him. I watched him for a few minutes. I studied his open eyes, remembering how they used to scare me. I watched his fingers tapping the buttons on the accordion. It's such a mysterious instrument to me. He was playing Those Were the Days, my favorite song. I went up to him when he was finished. "Hi," I said. He smiled in my direction. "Hello." "I'm glad you're back," I said. "Thank you, Missy," he said. "Where did you go?" "Oh, well," he said, "I went to stay with my daughter down south for a spell. These New York City winters are getting tough on these old bones of mine." "It was a cold winter, that's for sure," I said. "That's for sure. Your dog's name is Joni, right?" "That's right. And your name is Gordy Johnson?" He tilted his head. "Am I so famous that you know my name?" he asked, cackling. "My friend Summer Dawson knows you," I answered. He looked up, trying to think of who I might have been talking about. "Her father was in the Marines," I explained. "He died a few years ago, Sergeant Dawson." "Sergeant Dawson," he said. "Of course I remember him. Glorious man, sad news. I remember that family well. You tell that little girl I say hello, okay? She was a sweet child." "I will," I answered. "We had actually tried to find you. Summer and I were worried about you when you weren't here anymore." "Oh, honey," he said, "you don't need to worry about me. I make my way around all right. I'm not homeless or anything. I got a place of my own uptown. I just like to have something to do with myself, to get out with Joni. I take the express bus in the morning right outside my building, get out at the last stop. It's a nice ride. I come here out of habit, you know. Nice people here, like Sergeant Dawson was. I like to play for them. You like my music?" "Yes," I said. "Well, that's why I'm out here playing, girl," he said excitedly, "to brighten up people's days." I nodded happily. "Okay," I said, "thank you, Mr. Johnson. You can call me Gordy. I'm Charlotte, by the way." "Nice to meet you, Charlotte," he said. He extended his hand, and I shook it. "I better go now," I said. "It was nice talking to you. Bye-bye, Charlotte. Bye-bye, Mr. Johnson." I reached into my pocket, pulled out a dollar bill, and dropped it into his accordion case. Swoosh! "God bless America," said Gordy Johnson. The end. Okay.